So, working on Might and Magic Heroes Online, obviously the Might and Magic Heroes, Might and Magic Universe, sorry, has a very strong and very vocal audience. What has their reaction been to bringing the title online?
Surprisingly positive. As you say, they're very committed fans, they're very vocal. It's for all the right reasons, obviously. I think if someone is that vocal about what they think about the game, it's because they like it so much and they appreciate the potential that it has. Their reaction has been phenomenal, I have to say, and that was one of our big fears, obviously, because we didn't want anyone to think that now that we're moving into this space we would compromise in any way. I think there's one of the perceptions that exists with regards to browser games and free-to-play games is that there's some sort of dumbing down of the game content that is inherent in moving into these spaces, which is just not true. That's not what we're going for here. We've definitely got a hardcore focus, and we're putting a lot of effort into making our most hardcore fans happy. Their thresholds of acceptance vary. They're individuals as well, so some of them will be more welcoming than others. But I think the most important thing is just to kind of talk to them like adults and not like children, and tell them, look, the formula does actually cater very well to your needs, even in this format. However, some of the specifics have changed because we've changed certain things in the circumstances, and we can't just stay the exact same as, for example, Might and Magic Hero 6. If you explain the rationale, they'll usually just go, huh, I guess that makes sense. And where you once had a critic, you now have someone actually evangelizing your game because he gets it. So yeah, the fan reception has been very good.
Now obviously Heroes Online is actually very similar in a lot of ways to the box retail hero games. Has it been difficult making that work?
Actually, it's been surprisingly easy. I think if someone would have thrown something at me that was just kind of intrinsically action-packed, so if someone would have thrown me like a high-paced racing game or something like that, it would have been a lot more difficult to kind of integrate into this space. I think Might and Magic Heroes just naturally works a lot better than a lot of other games would. So it's been surprisingly easy. I mean, we've been able to keep the vast majority of things, and some of the things that we have had to change have been because of the multiplayer aspect. For instance, we have, as you notice, we have real-time movement on the province maps. That kind of makes sense when you think about it. Like, do you really want to wait around for 1,000 other players to make their move? No, you don't really. So that's one of those changes that we've had to put in there for practical reasons. But it works surprisingly well with the existing dynamics. I mean, we still get, we have a question that we always throw to fans, and we just ask them, does this still feel like a Heroes game? And that number is, the number of people who say yes to that question just keeps going up and up and up as we keep tweaking and making it feel more like what it's supposed to. So it's actually been easier than I think a lot of other games would have been to kind of transfer.
So how does the co-op mode work, both on the province maps and in battles?
Sure. Some of the details are still kind of being ironed out right now, but the point is to make sure that we have meaningful socialization and multiplayer gameplay, and all of the, to use a boring and maybe a little bit marketing-y word, brand pillars. So it's about, heroes and exploration and combat and towns being, the foundations of the heroes formula, as it were. So we need to have social interactions in all of these. So some of that stuff is going to be more obvious than other things, but we thought that the main thing that people will want to do with friends is going to be the combat, because that's where much of the challenge is. And to be fair, a lot of the other interactions just kind of come naturally. So the interacting with people, chatting with them and stuff is something we don't necessarily have to create any incentives for. It just happens organically because human beings are social by nature, so that wasn't really that difficult. The exploration aspect that I mentioned, that's also going to be very easy to implement in that people will explore, they'll find different stuff, secrets on the maps and stuff, and they'll share them. So that's not something we explicitly and intentionally have to account for. It just happens organically. The combat is the big one, obviously, because we need to take everything into consideration. You engage in turn-based combat with a friend of yours. How many stacks does each player get to bring into the battle? To what extent does the battle scale to accommodate multiple players? Because bear in mind, we don't want to make specific content for every multiplayer situation. That would just be, it would just be all kinds of bad. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the battles that are in the game don't really care if you play them on your own or with friends, at least not the majority of them. We're going to have some exclusive content that we say, look, this is a multiplayer battle. If you try to take this on your own, you have to either be hideously overleveled or a little bit crazy. But for most of it, like the stuff that you'll find in province maps and so on, you're going to be able to play with your friends, because we don't want to have this magical threshold of level or time or geography where suddenly you're introduced to multiplayer, because we don't know. There are lots of players who start playing these games with friends. So they're playing with a friend from day one, and that's why we want even the initial battles that they're doing as part of the learning experience to be accessible with friends. So yeah, look, I really look forward to see fans' reactions when we release that stuff.
So there are a lot of games, a lot of free-to-play games out there, but obviously they monetize the aesthetic quality of the game, buying new trinkets and new clothes and things like that.
Sure.
Is that something that you've looked into for Might and Magic?
Absolutely. Specifics to be released at a later time, as so often is the case. I'm not going to tell you exactly how many items of clothing and so on and so forth we're going to have in there, but we do recognize that people love that kind of stuff. They love to express themselves in these games. They love to kind of customize their look and feel, and even customize their ways of playing, and having that be a way of expressing themselves. Even in some cases where there's no real benefit to playing in a certain way, we will see certain play behaviors from people. So we're going to try our hardest to make sure that people can be as individual as possible within this game space.
Now, Might and Magic Heroes Online feels very natural on the mouse, that everything is immediately there. That would obviously translate quite well to control pad. Have you ever thought about console development for this?
No comment, sorry.
Okay.
Say anything about that one, because that guy's looking at me.
Console development on free-to-play in general,
yeah.
What was your opinion on it there?
It's interesting. It's not been 100% figured out yet. What with PCs being open platforms and ubiquitous, and there's so many advantages to being in this space that we're really happy with it. I mean, one of the reasons that we chose to use Flash is because everyone has Flash, and we're trying to reach the biggest possible audience. It's not that, anyone has anything against consoles, because I'm a pretty hefty console player myself, and I love them. It's just that it just makes a lot more sense to be in the browser space right now.
So not platform specific, what do you see as being the future of free-to-play? Obviously it's still very young.
Yes, it is. I think the future of free-to-play is going to be, in a sense, it's going to be a Back to the Future type thing, in the sense that the next big thing for free-to-play, as I see it, is to find a way to make all the play experiences that we've established before that was a thing, to kind of migrate into free-to-play, and that's kind of difficult. It's not super simple in every situation to know how do you take this game and make that into free-to-play. I mean, you've seen some attempts already in this free-to-play space where people just don't really know how to figure it out, so they make the RPG spin-off, because RPG in free-to-play has been figured out. So someone takes a brand and makes an RPG spin-off off of it. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but one of the things that I still see as like the final frontier, as it were, is to try to make sure that everything that we could do with a normal retail cash upfront model, we could do in the free-to-play space. When that happens, I'm going to be very happy, because I as a game designer think that the free-to-play business model brings out the best in me. I don't wow people and trick them into buying anything. I just want to make sure that they have the best possible experience, and if they want to invest in the game, that's going to make me happy.
So obviously Ubisoft has become famous for making inroads on the free-to-play market. Can you see it becoming a bigger portion of their business? Do you think other franchises are going to make the leap?
Wow, that's so much on the strategic level of the company that I dare not comment really. Maybe not.
Did you ever see BlueByte go into a different model for a game like Might and Magic Online, like back to the premium subscription models?
Wow. Right now, my mind is obviously 100% on Might and Magic Heroes Online. So I don't know. I mean, if we're talking super hypothetical, as if we were having a beer, I'd say the sky's the limit. I think whatever learnings that we get from Might and Magic Heroes Online, being what it is, and being the first entry in this space for the Might and Magic Heroes, the canonical, typical Heroes games, those learnings are going to affect everything in the future. I think we've not seen the last of free-to-play. We've definitely not seen the last of Heroes, and we've not seen the last of new business models either. So the future's still bright. The future's still being explored. Right now, my future is Might and Magic Heroes Online.